Hello, and welcome to my channel, where I explore the dark and twisted minds of some of the most notorious serial killers in history. Today, I'm going to count down the top 10 most dangerous serial killers in the US, based on the number of confirmed victims, the brutality of their crimes, and the impact they had on society. These are the monsters who terrorized their communities, evaded capture for years, and sometimes even became celebrities in their own right. But before we begin, make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon to get notified of my future videos. And if you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Now, let's get started. 10. Dennis Rader. Dennis Rader, also known as the BTK Killer, was a former church leader and family man who killed 10 people in Wichita, Kansas between 1974 and 1991. He taunted the police and the media with letters and clues, using the acronym BTK, which stood for Bind, Torture, Kill. He was finally caught in 2005 after he sent a floppy disk to the police that contained his personal information. He is currently serving 10 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Forensic psychology and criminal profiling of the BTK killer seem to show that he has many of the traits associated with psychopathy. His method of killing looked to inflict maximum pain on his victims. 9. Joseph DeAngelo, Jr. DeAngelo was born in Bath, New York in 1945. He attended high school in Sacramento, California, and then enlisted in the U.S. Navy. He was reportedly deployed to Vietnam and received commemoration, returning to California and California State University, Sacramento, to receive his bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Joseph DeAngelo, Jr., a former police officer, is believed to be the East Area Rapist, also dubbed the Golden State Killer, who committed at least 13 murders, 50 rapes, and 120 burglaries across California from 1974 to 1986. He eluded detection for decades until he was identified and arrested in 2018 thanks to a DNA match from a genealogy website. He pleaded guilty to his crimes in 2020 and received multiple consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. 8. Robert Lee Yates. Yates was stationed in various countries outside the continental United States, including Germany and later Somalia and Haiti, during the United Nations peacekeeping missions of the 1990s. Yates also served 3 years in the Army National Guard as a helicopter pilot from April 1997 through April 2000, who murdered at least 15 women, mostly prostitutes, in Spokane, Washington, in the 1990s. He would shoot them in the head, dump their bodies in rural areas, and sometimes even bury them in his own backyard. He was arrested in 2000 after a DNA match linked him to one of the victims. He pleaded guilty to 13 murders and was later convicted of 2 more. His death sentence was commuted to life in prison after the state abolished the death penalty. 7. Chester Turner. Chester Turner was a serial rapist and killer who preyed on women in Los Angeles in the 1980s and 1990s. He was responsible for at least 14 murders, including one of a pregnant woman and her unborn child. He would strangle his victims with his bare hands or a cord and leave their bodies in alleys or dumpsters. He was arrested in 2002 after his DNA was linked to several crime scenes. He was convicted of 11 murders in 2007 and 3 more in 2014. He is currently on death row. 6. Angel Maturino Resendiz. He had a horrific childhood. He was raised by a single mother who often physically abused him. He was raped by his uncle and sexually abused by a child molester. He, also known as the Railroad Killer, was a Mexican drifter who killed at least 15 people in the US and Mexico in the 1990s. He would jump off trains and kill people in nearby homes, using a variety of weapons such as a knife, a pickaxe, a rock, or a hammer. He would often steal their belongings and sometimes rape his female victims. He was captured in 1999 after he surrendered to the authorities in exchange for meeting his wife. He was executed in Texas in 2006. 5. Randy Stephen Kraft. Randy Stephen Kraft was a computer programmer and a gay man who killed at least 16 young men, mostly hitchhikers or Marines in California, Oregon, and Michigan from 1972 to 1983. He would drug, torture, and sexually abuse his victims before strangling them or slitting their throats. He would then dump their bodies along highways or in remote areas. He was arrested in 1983 after a police officer found a dead body in his car. He was also found to have a list of cryptic codes that referred to his victims. He was convicted of 16 murders in 1989 and is currently on death row. Kraft had some symptoms of ASPD. He exploited, manipulated, and violated the rights of others. He had difficulty sustaining long-term relationships, and he repeatedly broke the law. Kraft was never diagnosed with ASPD, and he never had medical psychological treatment. 4. Gary Ridgway. Ridgway was 33 years old when the murders started, was described by some as being shy and having low self-esteem, had a strong animosity towards women and prostitutes in particular, was familiar with his sites of disposal, drove an old pickup truck at the time, divorced twice, also had non-violent encounters. Gary Ridgway, also known as the Green River Killer, was a truck painter who killed at least 49 women, mostly prostitutes and runaways, in the Seattle area from 1982 to 1998. He would strangle them with his hands or a ligature and dump their bodies in wooded areas near the Green River or in other locations. He was arrested in 2001 after a DNA match linked him to 4 of the victims. He confessed to 48 murders in 2003 and 1 more in 2011 in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. He is currently serving 49 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. 3. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was a charming and intelligent law student who killed at least 30 women and possibly many more in several states, from 1974 to 1978. He would lure his victims with his good looks and charisma, and then bludgeon, strangle, or mutilate them. He would sometimes revisit their corpses and engage in necrophilia. He escaped from custody twice and committed more murders while on the run. He was finally captured in Florida in 1978 after a traffic stop. He was convicted of 3 murders in 1979 and 2 more in 1980. He was executed in Florida in 1989. 2. John Wayne Gacy. Gacy was born into a blue-collar family and seems to have had a fairly ordinary childhood, but he exhibited a growing tendency toward sadism, which resulted in several encounters with the law in the 1960s. John Wayne Gacy was a successful businessman and a community volunteer who killed at least 33 young men and boys, mostly teenagers, in Chicago from 1972 to 1978. He would lure his victims with promises of jobs, money, or drugs, and then rape, torture, and strangle them. He would then bury their bodies in the crawl space under his house, or dump them in a nearby river. He was arrested in 1978 after the police found the remains of 29 victims in his property. He was convicted of 33 murders in 1980 and executed in Illinois in 1994. 1. Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer was born in Milwaukee on May 21, 1960, to Lionel and Joyce Dahmer. He was described as an energetic and happy child until the age of 4, when a traumatic and painful recovery following surgery to correct a double hernia seemed to effect a change in the boy. Jeffrey Dahmer was a factory worker and a cannibal who killed 17 men and boys, mostly of African or Asian descent, in Milwaukee from 1978 to 1991. He would drug, strangle, and dismember his victims, and then keep their body parts as trophies or eat them. He also performed experiments on some of his victims, such as drilling holes in their skulls and injecting acid or boiling water into their brains. He was arrested in 1991 after a potential victim escaped and alerted the police. He was convicted of 15 murders in 1992 and sentenced to 15 life terms. He was killed by a fellow inmate in Wisconsin in 1994. Thank you for joining me in today's exploration. I trust you found the information thought-provoking. If you gained insights or have thoughts to share, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Let me know which aspects intrigued you the most, or if there's something you think I missed. For more engaging content, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell icon. This way, You'll stay updated on upcoming videos. Your support is invaluable. Thank you for watching and take care of yourselves.